Reaction sleepover time! Welcome everyone to the Reaction Sleepover. As I just stated, this is the series where we get cozy and we react to stuff. Today in particular, we're doing Bridezillas and other Weddingzillas. We're gonna start with a rather short one. It's short, but not so sweet. Probably. Bridezilla? Nasty? Or both? Why not both? My former friend got married in 2019. For some reason, his wedding came up in conversation last night. The topic of conversation was how he started crying when he saw her coming down the aisle, and she flat out screamed while walking to shut the F up and stop effing crying. I mean, couldn't he have been crying because he was happy? Is that not okay with you? Maybe crying out of realization of what he's just gotten himself into. I called her both personally, but I just want outside opinions, I guess. While I'm dealing with a ridiculous situation, I thought I might as well entertain the internet. That is a lot of information in a very short paragraph. She screamed at him as she was walking down the aisle? What a sight to behold. Imagine you're a guest there, and you're looking at the groom, like starting to tear up, and your first thought's probably, oh, look, he's crying. You hear, ah! And you turn around to see this. How dare you! Stop crying! No tears in my wedding! I don't really understand what could offend her so much about him crying. Maybe she could sense that he knew it was a mistake. The Bridezilla radar went off. Radar or devil horns? You decide. Kind of sounds like she's at least pretty nasty. At least. Even under stress, that's an over-the-top reaction and a weird choice in front of the whole wedding. Like, that's embarrassing for both of you. Are they still married? What was the husband's reaction? Fear! Yes, it was while she walked down the aisle. They're still married with a kid. She's controlling, part of why I bounced, and he was surprised. Only surprised? Let's say the best case scenario. He was so happy that he had to cry. And that upset you? Such weird behavior. The wench behavior. I can't say it too loud, or she'll hear me. My best friend from childhood invited me to her wedding, but forgot to assign me a seat. I spent the night alone in a separate room. My childhood best friend, 23 female, got married this weekend, and I was so excited to be there to support her on her big day. I'm a chocolatier. Can you be my friend? So the bride asked me if I could create the wedding favors and dessert table. I was ecstatic to help with the wedding and went above and beyond to create a gorgeous table that was huge hit on the day. I was told early on that the wedding was over budget, and to keep costs low, my boyfriend was not invited. I was extremely understanding and even reduced my rates for the sweet table as my present to the couple. So sweet. Ah, sweet. A couple weeks later, after reviewing the guest list, the bride informed me that my boyfriend could come as my plus one, but if he did, I would be moved from head table. My boyfriend is a wedding photographer and is looking to build his videography portfolio. Knowing that the couple didn't have a videographer, he offered to film a professional wedding video free of charge. That is so generous. The bride was ecstatic and offered to move us to the vendor table so that we could network with the other vendors. We loved the idea, and it was confirmed that we would be sitting with the vendors. And they lived happily never after. The day of the wedding, we arrived 4 hours early to help with the event. My boyfriend spent the time filming while I set up the dessert table and helped the event coordinator set the dinner tables. After the ceremony, guests were moved to the cocktail room while the original room was converted into the room for the reception. While helping convert the room, I noticed that our names were not on the seating chart. Hey, dear friend, I noticed something. And I started this with the benefit of the doubt of like, weddings are very busy, maybe she genuinely forgot. But these two are very important to the entire thing. Seems sus. I asked the event coordinator where we would be sitting, and she said, good question, and left to find out. She came back to say that there was no vendor table, and that if we were staying for dinner, my boyfriend and I would have to sit in a separate room as we were not on the list. That's a pretty big slip up. If it was accidental. The room was closed off from the reception, so we couldn't hear or see anything, let alone talk to anybody. Wait, this was after? This was at the point where you couldn't even ask her about it? This feels conspiratorial. I told the event coordinator that we were in fact guests and that we should be moved into the reception room. The event coordinator herself was seated at one of the tables in the room. And I guess it makes sense that she's in the room because she's the event coordinator, but they were both very important, and they're friends and guests. They have triple reasons to be in there. I told her I was a longtime friend of the bride and even originally meant to be seated at the head table. However, the event coordinator said she couldn't do anything about it. So assuming this was at the point where everyone was in there, they're saying like, oh, it's impossible. Is it really so hard to just like squeeze them in? What? I don't get that. Like, sure, it might mess up the things a little bit, but if she really cared about her friends, she would make it work. Unless there's like some weird miscommunication happening. I don't know. This is weird. I approached the bride to explain the situation. She mentioned that it was definitely a mix-up and that we should be in the room. The bride mentioned that she didn't want to undermine me as a businesswoman, so she never told the event coordinators that we were friends or that I was a guest. So I guess what could have happened is that the event coordinator didn't realize that they were also guests, and so they figured that like the event people just had to be in the other room, which I guess could make sense. But there's more to read. She left the coordination of the vendor table to the event coordinator and left it off the seating chart. The event coordinator was not made aware of any of the vendors, besides herself and the MC, were staying for the reception and therefore didn't think to add us in. Although I understand the mix-up, the bride did nothing to get us moved to the main room. My boyfriend and I were cut off from the reception with no one to speak to, no way to hear or see, and even had to ask to be fed. Oh my gosh. Did they just try to pretend you weren't there? As a result, I missed the entire wedding and spent the majority of the evening crying in the bathroom, waiting to move the dessert table into the main room after dinner so that we could leave. My boyfriend continued to film everything as he was committed to getting a beautiful video for his portfolio. The next morning, I emailed the bride about the experience. She apologized profusely and said she was scatterbrained on the day and didn't think to do anything about it. She feels extremely guilty and would still like to be friends. I would like to forgive her, but I am still extremely hurt. After reading through all of it, it seems like maybe the bride genuinely didn't mean for that to happen and that it was a big misunderstanding. Why didn't the event coordinator fix it? It's her job. She could have crammed you in or waited to see who didn't show up and sit you there. I'm not saying it's not the bride's fault. I'm sure if she had told the wedding coordinator that she had to find you a seat, she would have. Or she shouldn't have sat down herself. A coordinator is an employee, not a guest. The coordinator was also a friend of the bride that I never met. Oh, that's interesting. Ah, so this is a pattern then. Was there anyone working at the wedding who wasn't doing it as a favor? Getting more information. The photographer worked for the groom's mom, so I don't think so. I wonder how many other bridges they burned that day in the name of doing the wedding on a discount. Did the photographer have a proper seat, or were you the only two left out? The photographer left before dinner, so we were the only ones left out. Oh, what the heck? That's rude. Even more reason for her to understand the predicament. The whole thing is absurd. If there wasn't a seat for you, it's because she didn't pay for you. Oh, I guess that's a fair point. She had to count every single person and turn in her head count, including vendors. So yeah, she knew. No excuses, horrible person. Shake my head. That's unfortunate, because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, especially since they were the only two left out. I was kind of getting vibes like maybe this was on purpose. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Be honest with the bride and tell her you feel she used your friendship to get a good deal, and once she had it, she discarded you. My question to you is why not just leave instead of sit in another room? Yep, that's what I said in my email to her. I had to add the refrigerated items to the dessert table and wheel it into the room at 9:30 p.m. I didn't want to damage my business reputation by just leaving. I left as soon as the desserts were put out. Yeah, after reading the comments and getting like a little bit more context from the poster, hey, you used me and then you didn't even allow me in there. Plus the fact that they were the only two not in there even though they originally were supposed to. I hate to say it, but it's wenchy. Am I the a-hole for wearing a romper and not a dress at a wedding? I, 16 gender fluid, was recently at a close relative's wedding with my family. Just guests, not as part of the bridal party or anything. The dress code the bride told us, and that was on the invite, was that women wore dresses and men had to wear something similarly formal, e.g. a suit. I am AFAB, so I was told I would have to wear a dress. I don't identify as a woman, however, so I wasn't comfortable with this and asked for a potential compromise on my outfit. She insisted that I wore a dress. Come on, what is the big deal about not wearing a dress? Ugh, it doesn't have to be that deep. As long as they're dressed nice, what's the big deal? I'd rather someone be dressed in something else. Be out of dress code and be at my wedding than not. Also, is it just me or is putting like a dress code on an invitation kind of cringe? Cut to when my family were ordering their wedding clothes / figuring out their outfits. My parents asked if I found anything suitable, and I sent them a link to a romper that looks very much like a dress at first glance. It's genuinely not noticeable unless you look closely that the bottom part is not a skirt. So they got something that like basically is a dress. That would mean that the bride looked specifically at them, at this person, and like zoomed in on their dress, which is weird. That's weird behavior. And paid attention to specifically them to make sure they were wearing a dress. You are the biggest turd blossom. Why does this matter? Especially if the romper looks basically like a dress. I've seen those before. They trick me all the time. I honestly just think they're a dress. Do you think you're special because you can tell that a romper isn't a dress? Be like, it's not a dress. How dare thee? How dare thee be such a wencheth? We got the romper. It arrives and everything is fine. I wore it to the wedding, and for the first part, everything seems okay. Until I'm pulled along too hard by a kid and ended up tripping and falling face first, sprawled out on the floor. You poor thing. Oh, so they're already feeling embarrassed, and then you're telling me the bride is going to, like, embarrass them more and humiliate. I'm gonna fight someone! As everyone nearby gathers around to see what happened, the bride notices that the bottom part of my outfit is shorts and not a skirt, and loses her crap and starts screaming at me that she made it clear I needed to wear a dress, and that I was being selfish by going against her wishes on her special day. Oh my gosh. Deep breaths. Ah! What is wrong with you? I'm pretty sensitive and also hate loud noises as I'm autistic, so I started crying because of the mix of pain from scraping my leg, and her loud voice yelling is enough to overstimulate me pretty badly. My cousin leads me away to treat my wound. The bride stalks off, still fuming. Yeah, go ahead and have your temper tantrum, you brat. And won't speak to us for the rest of the night until we eventually leave at the end of the wedding. I want to protect you with all of my being. You are too precious for this nonsense. Because this is a kid. This is a kid that she's yelling at. Over clothing. Over something that basically looked like a dress. I was reassured by some members of my family that I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm still super hung up over it and wondering if it was bad of me to wear that. No, absolutely not, you precious bean! I'm happy to provide a link to my outfit if anyone wants to see it to gauge for themselves. Ooh, yes. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that doesn't look enough like a dress to you? This bride is ridiculous. Because this poor person, they fell. And so that means like this flared up. So this poor 16-year-old was already like embarrassed and exposed enough. And the bride comes stomping over in all her wenchy glory and points at her and goes, "How dare you not wear a dress when it practically looks like one otherwise? You're insane! You are throwing a tantrum at a 16-year-old. Grow up." Edit 2. Not attending wasn't really an option. She was marrying a close family member and we were pretty much expected to be there. My parents said that I needed to come as well. Edit 3. This is the most feminine item I own by far, and the discomfort is mainly subconscious with dysphoria and all, and the being forced into gender binary when that's not who I am. Plus, I enjoy the security of not worrying if my skirt will fly up in the wind. Honestly, same. That would be wonderful. You deserve to live and identify however you want, and I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I would have much preferred a pantsuit or something, but knew that wouldn't go, so this was the closest thing to a fitting dress code I could find. Not the a-hole. Absolutely not. Dress codes for non-wedding party members are usually for a level of formality, not a prescription for a particular article of clothing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting people to look nice. It's a wedding after all. But down to like the particular type of clothing, if you can't even tell the outfit isn't up to code without trip or fall accident, I hope you're okay. I can't see what the problem is. Yeah, Brainiac, you wouldn't have noticed if they didn't even fall. Thank you for the input, and yeah, I'm fine now. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, because that's incredibly embarrassing over something you shouldn't even have to be embarrassed by. The bride should honestly be embarrassed. I have so much rage in my little body. That's gonna be it for today. Remember, if you have any stories, you can email me. I feel like punching something now. Goodbye!